Hello, this is your host, Zach McGinnis, and welcome to episode 4 of Steaming Along the Line, a podcast and video production all about steam locomotives, their operations, and what it takes to keep these historic machines running nationwide. Since we started the show, we've received a lot of questions from our viewers and listeners of what it takes to operate a steam locomotive from the engineer and fireman's perspective. While every locomotive in operation is different, the most important aspect of a successful engineer and fireman is teamwork in the cab. In this episode, we're going to ride in the cab of Reading and Northern 484 number 2102 as it powers a fall excursion out of Jim Thorpe, Pennsylvania. You'll see and hear the locomotive crew fight freshly wet rail that is also covered with leaves from the trees along the railroad, which makes the railhead really slippery and brings the 2102 down to her knees as she makes her way up grade. Sit back and relax, and let's watch this amazing show from the cab of the 2102. The engineer today on the 2102 is Shane Frederickson, a 30-year veteran of the Reading and Northern Steam Program. Firing is Chuck Truesdale, also a veteran of the Reading and Northern Steam Program. Also in the cab is Engineman Ryan Boucher, and you'll see him helping the crew out as they make their way along the line today. The 2102 is starting up grade out of Jim Thorpe as we see Shane looking out the window back at his train to make sure everything is good. His left hand is on the sander valve in the cab of the locomotive, and he's putting sand down on the rail to try to help with traction for the locomotive so it doesn't slip. In this trackside view, you can see the evidence of a rainbow in the upper right part of the screen. Even though it's sunny, a heavy rain shower came through minutes before the train's arrival. The rain and wind were also hard enough to knock down a lot of leaves and made them stick, making it really slippery for the locomotive and crew. The train is made up of heavyweight coaches as well as 2 full-length domes, and you can see it stretched out through this S-curve, which doesn't help with the momentum of the train going. You want long, straight tangent track for good traction when going up grade. Curves are not your friend on a steam locomotive with a heavy train. The battle of wheel slips has begun as the train is stretched out through the S-curve we just previously talked about. Each time the wheels slip, Shane shuts the throttle off and gives the wheels a chance to catch back up and get their grip on the rail. As soon as the wheels have caught their grip, he'll open the throttle back up, putting steam back into the cylinders to try to maintain speed and keep the train moving. Verbal communication is pretty much impossible when an engine's working this hard. Shane just gave the nod to Engineman Ryan Boucher to get the booster ready on the engine. We see Ryan reaching up on the turret and turning the booster valve on, which is supplying steam to the booster. The 2102 is equipped with a booster on its trailing truck. A booster is a supplementary 2-cylinder steam locomotive that's connected to the rear axles on the trailing truck to give the engine more tractive effort on starting a train or working up grade really hard. The booster can be cut in when operating around 10 to 20 miles per hour. As the engine continues to slip, Shane is shutting the throttle off and they're continuously losing speed during this time. You'll see him lower the forward reverse gear to the all forward motion. And then the red handle that's at a diagonal under his arm, that's the booster lever. We see Chuck getting up and checking his fire. What he's looking for inside the firebox now is a nice, level, even fire. Shane just now activated the booster to help maintain speed. As the engine's continuing to slip down, you're losing speed. You don't want to get caught flat-footed and be down to a stall and then put your booster in. So the reason he did it now was to help try to maintain speed and to keep from stalling. The noise you hear now is the cylinder cocks on the booster going off as well. You want to make sure they're open when you first engage the booster so you don't blow a cylinder head on them just like you would on the steam locomotive. Chuck's hands on the stoker engine right now. He's feeding coal to the fire to keep steam pressure up. With Shane's hands full on the throttle, Ryan is coming up now to shut the cylinder cocks off on the booster engine. The cylinders are nice and warm on it, so now it's giving the full power to assist Shane with keeping the train going. Here's a good shot of the running gear. You can see all the leaves that are along the tie edges and near the right-of-way. And as we're going into this curve right here, you can just really see the engine give away. Ryan's climbing down the ladder to take a look at the sanders to make sure they're still putting sand on the rail. Sometimes the sand gets wet in the sand dune and can clog your sanders up. So when you actually think you're putting sand down on the rail, you're not getting anything at all. You can see Shane's getting a really good workout, shutting the throttle off and coming right back on it to try to keep the train from stalling. So as he opens the throttle, it seems like every time he's putting steam to the cylinders, the wheels are slipping. Chuck has the engine really dialed in on the firing side. He's just basically sitting over there making minor adjustments here or there. His steam pressure is up as close as possible without the safety valves going off. He's got adequate water in the boiler, so he's pretty much along for the ride at this point and giving Shane whatever he needs to keep the train moving. You don't want to lose any steam pressure at this point because the engine is working at its maximum capacity, so you want to keep it close to the safety valves as possible. If you start to lose 5 to 10 pounds, the engine is inevitably going to stall because there's not enough pressure there to keep it going. This is really, really slippery rail to get the engine down on its knees like this. Here's a good view of the booster gauge. It's the brass gauge just to the left of the throttle by the whistle cord. And you can see the booster pressure that's going with the locomotive as they're trying to keep from stalling at this point. This is an interesting technique we see Shane doing. He's almost coaxing the throttle in and out. And as soon as he's giving it steam and knowing steam's getting to the cylinders, he's shutting it off, trying to limit his wheel slips. You see Shane give his arms a good little shake. You know the way he's having to work this throttle is a really big workout, and his arms will feel it the next day by being sore. Again, the engine was starting to dig in pretty good there on that straight stretch. Felt like she was starting to pick up speed, and as soon as it started to get into that curve, she slipped and let loose again. The dispatcher's calling the 2102 on the radio, checking to see how things are going. With Shane's hands being full and Chuck being busy firing the locomotive, this is where an extra set of hands come and help Ryan, and he handles the radio communications with the dispatcher. This is about as slow you could go without stalling. The engine, frankly, didn't have a booster on it right now. They would be down to a stop and stalled out. But the booster is helping with the extra tractive effort to keep the wheels going until Shane can open the throttle back up and give more steam to the cylinders. We see Chuck open the firebox door, taking a quick peek in there. It's like looking into the sun. The fire is so hot and bright at this point. He really has this thing dialed in perfect. Engine's on a straight piece of tangent track right now, and she's starting to dig in. You can hear in the exhaust that speed is starting to pick up slowly but surely. The engine's starting to dig in good now. We see Shane can leave the throttle open pretty consistently without her slipping. Now it's just letting her dig in and build speed back up. And this is steam railroading, keeping you humble. Just when you think you have it, something happens and she slips again. Another part of keeping your train going and being successful in a situation like this is knowing your railroad. These guys run on this railroad a lot. They know the railroad like the back of their hands. So Shane knows right now that he's got the train out of the hardest part and out of the majority of the curves, and gives a little celebratory whistle with the Reading Hooter whistle. She slipped once right there, but being on this straight stretch doesn't really affect the speed of the train because he's able to come right back out on the throttle and give steam to the cylinders again. You also see they're approaching a little tunnel up here in Nesquehoning. This tunnel will have the rail in the shade, and sometimes leaves get in there and blow around, so Shane will keep the sand on as he goes through the tunnel here. See the wind blowing and actually see the leaves in the air that's falling down, and with the rail being wet from the rainstorm, those leaves just stick right on top of the railhead and make it really slippery. A couple slips before entering the tunnel, but she's still gaining speed. Looking at the stack, it's a nice gray stack. You can see through it. Chuck has this thing right on the money right now. Engine's working hard. She's holding the rail pretty good right now. Sounding good, sounding loud. This is showtime in steam railroading. All right, Shane's coming out more on the throttle. He's getting ready to disengage the booster. It's not needed anymore. So he'll disengage that and then start hooking the reverser up, shortening the stroke of the valve to pick up speed now. After Shane disengaged the booster, we see Ryan reaching up and shutting off the steam supply to the booster at the turret. The engine's cruising along now. Chuck's still got it firing good. Nice bright fire in the firebox. Shane's got the throttle about 3/4 of the way open, it looks like, on the quadrant, and he's hooking the valve gear up a little bit more, gaining speed. And one big slip just for old time's sake. Shane shuts the throttle off, hits the sander valve, throws sand out, and then comes right back out on the throttle to maintain speed. The hard part of the grade is over now, and the engine's maintaining track speed. Chuck has the fire growing nice and hot, good gray stack coming out. Shane has her hooked up just right, as evidenced by the exhaust. She's putting on a heck of a show for these people trackside in Pennsylvania. This is mainline steam railroading at its best. This concludes our episode of Steaming Along the Line. We hope you enjoyed getting a front row seat of what it takes to get a big mainline steam locomotive with a heavy excursion train up a grade with wet and slippery rails. We'd like to thank the following people for their contributions to this episode, including the Reading and Northern Railroad for hosting these fantastic steam excursions over their lines. Reading and Northern steam crew members Ryan Bauscher, Shane Fredrickson, and Chuck Truesdale for their professionalism, knowledge, and accessibility for everyone's viewing pleasure. A special thank you goes out to James Parfrey of SteamTrainVideos.com for providing the cameras and footage of the 21 and 2 in action. For more exciting episodes and content from the past and future, subscribe to Steaming Along the Line on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Spotify. This episode of Steaming Along the Line has been brought to you by SteamTrainVideos.com, the finest contemporary steam locomotive videos in the business. There are a number of productions that include steam locomotives and railroads nationwide that you won't want to miss. SteamTrainVideos.com has a number of selections in DVD, Blu-ray, and can be streamed on Vimeo. Go check out their selections and titles at www.steamtrainvideos.com. Thank you to all our viewers and listeners as we went steaming along the line with Reading and Northern 2102.